which was as of April 28th, should have received a ballot starting on Wednesday from OpenVote. And this has all of our contests on it, from the presidential to U.S. Senate, and then we have a number of other candidates running. We've heard of some people getting their ballots in their spam box, so if you haven't seen it yet, go ahead and check there. You can still register, of course.
Do you just want me to tell people when their time is starting and when it's finishing?
You can still, there's still time to register up until voting ends at 4:30 and be sent a ballot. And that's pretty much all. I think everything should have been explained in the literature, in writing. If there's any questions, I'm sure there are, but I don't know exactly what questions there'll be, so feel free.
1 minute. 1 minute.
All right. You folks need to mute. Amy and Natalie, you need to mute. There you go. That's better. All right, folks, we're going to start the meeting. We have reviewing the agenda is on issue now. I believe if you will look down, you will see we have several proposals. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. And then we'll start our nominations of state and local candidacies. At the conventions in the past, we have allowed people to add agenda items from the floor. We have a pretty darn busy meeting, so I would suggest we don't do much of that, if any. But if somebody has a to one of our agenda items, now would be the time to make that objection clear to all of us. People are having trouble accessing video meetings, passwords, etc. Well, that'll be dealt with by Ken, I guess. All right. We have a proposal for Green Party registration prior to the conventions, encoding past procedures.
Yep.
Okay, well, voting for our conventions has always been those who are registered green for the PGP primary. And however, no one seemed to write it. And this simply adds this to the documents.
Okay, taking the 30 seconds or so to read all this.
Should I read it aloud?
Probably a good idea.
Okay, 1 second while I bring it up.
The change?
And I can read it. I see it. So
Okay.
its nominating conventions shall be publicized as required by Oregon law. The coordinating committee shall also use the best practical means available to give notice of each convention to all of the supporting members in the entire state at least 30 days prior to the convention. Eligible voters shall be those registered Pacific Green on the primary election registration deadline, as indicated in the primary. Okay, so you guys can see it's June 6th now, April 28th. That's a little more than 30 days before this meeting, but that's when the cutoff would have been for this year. And I think that's how we're pretty much how we're operating.
And the added text is the part that begins with eligible voters. Everything else was already in our bylaw. We simply didn't have that specification in there.
Great, thank you. Well, that's pretty clear. if there's any discussion, now is the time to say so on your Zoom group chat form that hopefully is up in front of you. If you have anything to address to this.
Back?
How do you want me to do it? Share my screen?
No, no. Go to the
yeah,
Google,
sure.
go to the Google Drive and but who is scheduled to speak?
Mr. Checkfall.
Okay, Chuck, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Briefly.
So if I understand, so this is a change to the PGP bylaws, and if in order, so let me see. If you're you can only vote in a PGP convention event if you're registered PGP on the deadline registration date for the primary elections. So that means if you are someone who wanted to vote for Bernie in a so does this preclude anybody from jumping around the party thing, from going from Democrat to participate in the Democratic primaries and then re-register PGP? That's my question.
Chuck, you're absolutely correct. That's exactly what it's for. And I want you to know, 20 odd years ago, I had voted for Dennis Kucinich. And the rest of the convention decided that because of that, even though I was a Green before a lot of them, a registered Green before a lot of them were, in many ways, I didn't get to vote at that convention. And I was okay with that for the presidential candidates. I was allowed to vote for internal party offices, but not for public offices at that time. And this is just really formalizing that, and Dan has gone to the time to write it up because he realized it's not in our bylaws, even though that had been our practice forever. This is just really memorializing what we've always done and what the other parties certainly do. Georgia.
Okay.
Anybody else wants to speak to this?
So let me before I completely give up, one quick follow-up on that.
Go ahead.
So, if we ever wanted to foster fusion politics, I mean, couldn't an argument be made that this will preclude that kind of cross-pollination? Is this making us a more secular internal group? Do we preclude, or is this, as George is saying, simply a formality that's been in a unspoken rule, and it really won't make much difference for anything, except make the Pacific Greens more solid as a whatever, group in process and so on. That's my question. I'll shut up. I'm gonna mute myself.
Anybody wants to speak to that?
Welcome to Maestro
I
Conference.
Go ahead,
Please
Charles.
enter the conference PIN number followed by the pound key.
What it does is prevent people from voting twice, so it's a fairness issue.
This call may be recorded.
If we
Thank
want to
you.
pursue
You will
fusion
now be
politics, we can do co-nominations, or we could coordinate nominations with other parties we want to work with. So I don't think it precludes that.
Nor does it preclude people who are not registered Green by the cutoff date from participating in our convention. It just keeps them, denies them the right to vote for our public office candidates because they've already participated in another party's process to do that. And Chuck, I hear you. If this was up to me, I would probably say, hey, 20 years ago, I think I should have been able to vote twice, and because I was coming from a good place. But how do we say?
that Holocaust education be taught in the schools. And my proposal is that genocide education should be taught in the schools, which would include the Holocaust. But first and foremost, it should include teaching our children about our own genocide of our native indigenous people and other genocides and other victims of the Holocaust besides the Jewish population of Europe. So then there's the whole issue of labeling criticism of Israel as anti-Semitism, which is obviously a violation of First Amendment rights. So we should take a position against that. And let's see, there was one, the threatened annexation of the West Bank that's looming on the near horizon right now. To take a position about that if Israel does this, we should require them to give Palestinians full civil and human rights as a condition of any further support of Israel, either diplomatically in the Security Council or through weapons or foreign aid of any kind. So we should make our assistance to Israel, both financial and diplomatic, contingent on their compliance with international law. And there are a number of Security Council resolutions and so forth.
Well, thank you, Mr. Jack, for your precious information. I think we should move on with Dan.
Okay, Jack, just to clarify, I've seen how you've written this up now. This is going to be a proposal that we're going to submit to National
No.
to modify the GPUS platform, because that's how it's written on that link.
We are going to be incorporating this into our own platform. And yes, it is going to be forwarded on to National for their consideration and hopefully inclusion in an updated Israel-Palestine issues platform.
Okay. So just as a point of information, our platform has been updated more recently than that. And I've tried to direct you to the War and Foreign Policy section, where much of that is included. In particular, it starts with adapting the UN Charter explicitly into the U.S. code. And so I think, of course, I support everything that you're proposing. But what I've been trying to say is that it's already kind of in there. So you're more talking about a rewrite to our platform than an addition. There's a lot of good improvements there.
Well, Dan, I wasn't sure about what you meant by writing into the U.S. code. You know, Article 6 of the Constitution already requires us to treat all our treaty obligations as the supreme law of the land, and that includes most prominently the United Nations Charter and the Fourth Geneva Convention and so forth. So how would that work? To be more explicit about these things, or?
The problem with that is that U.S. Treaties signed by the U.S. are divided into several categories. Some are self-executing, and some are not self-executing. Self-executing treaties get laws written into the U.S. code so that nobody can break them, and of course, some of our international treaties just haven't done that. And I agree that could be clearer, but if you're proposing to replace the whole thing, I mean, I'm asking that we kind of co-rewrite this. Would that be all right with you?
Well, I suppose I haven't read the. I guess I haven't read the updated version, but I just think it's important that we be very specific about the issues right now, and take a very clear position on each of those issues.
We have it stuck.
Can we move to Mr. Alex?
Mail like Monday or Tuesday.
Go ahead.
Monday, and I still haven't got it.
all the sentiment behind
Okay, we're trying to find out if
just one
John is in the
thing for
room. We're not getting
consideration
a
is,
response from John yet. in
you
the
say,
private breakout.
like item 2, is
Okay.
Israel's threatened annexation. I just
He
would
said
like
I
some
thought you had a
distinction
way of
between
testing him.
Israel and the. So I know it's a finer point, but I would just like some distinction there that the current, almost fascist right-wing government is the one that's implementing these policies, and that's not necessarily reflect on Israel as a whole.
Well, I think if you look
Natalie,
back
stack. We have a stack, Jack, so I'm going to put you on the stack. I agree with Alex. Also, the other thing that I wanted to mention, sorry, is that as written now, I don't know, it's.
So I'm not sure where John is. Okay, well.
50 on armed Palestinians, etc. That needs to be taken out
Also
of the
the
wording
live-
because otherwise that platform proposal is going to be outdated very quickly. So what I would suggest is, I think that we totally support it. What I would suggest is to contact the platform committee at the national, and we can make sure to facilitate that connection so that you can review the position on Israel at the national committee and offer your suggestions. And when you do so, make sure that you contact us so that we can advocate for you.
Well, wouldn't our advocation be sending this on to national if we reach a consensus or a majority vote for it?
Okay. I'll have on the stack, Ibrahim, who's on the stack?
Alex, go ahead, Alex de Blasi.
Sure.
Are you muted?
Yeah, am I off mute? Am I good?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So I think injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And I think it is our responsibility as the party that is opposed to empire that we have a clear position in opposition to any right-wing regime. And it's not just Netanyahu, it's Narendra Modi, it's Jair Bolsonaro, it's Donald Trump. It's all of these, it's a lot of regimes. In response to Alan's question, we probably could go through country by country. That would take a lot of time. But I think in this case, this is a country with whom we've had very close diplomatic ties since its inception in 1947. And I think we're continuously finding ourselves on the wrong side of history and the wrong side of humanity with our continued support, specifically of the Netanyahu regime. And he's been hanging on to power now off and on for 2 decades. So just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think that is the main point, that we support them diplomatically in the Security Council. We don't support any other dictatorial regime in the Security Council. We don't protect any other country from international justice. And as far as Netanyahu, he's no different than any of the regimes before that. If you look back, these are policies that have been at the heart and soul of Israel since 1948. And the political distinctions in Israel are basically inconsequential. You go from Yitzhak Shamir, who was a terrorist leader in 48, Menachem Begin, who was a terrorist leader in 48,
okay,
etc. So there's the Netanyahu regime.
Yes, Jack. We totally. I don't want to cut you off, but we have a very tight agenda. We agree with the platform. I think that there's a pretty big agreement. There may be some tweaking on the wording, the government of Israel instead of Israel. There's something. Yeah. I have George on the stack. I made a proposal to connect you directly to the national platform so that you can review the platform and work more closely with what's already written. George, you're on the stack, and then Dan is on the stack.
George is the ostensibly the co-facilitator of this meeting right now, but Nathalie, you're pretty much doing it. So I think I'm going to resign as co-facilitator at this point in time. I will say this, I think we can probably reach a fairly quick consensus on this issue. I don't think Alex Polikoff, we need to really change it from Israel to Israel's government, unless, you know, it's pretty minor change. So I don't care whether we do that or not, and I doubt that Jack does either.
No.
But what I think we want to do is very quickly see if there are people that have any basic objections to this, and if not, then we consensus on it. And we also send it on to national, and yes, we will help and facilitate Jack also conversing with the National Platform Committee. But I think we need to send this on to national ourselves as our new, as an addition, with some changes to our own platform on this issue, and move on. George out.
Dan, Polio, please go ahead.
So again, as it's written written as something that we're going to submit to national, and you folks, you can see our platform at pacificgreens.org/platform. Scroll down to the war and foreign policy section, which is what we have relevant to this topic so far. And if my understanding is right, that we're going to make edits to that with the new proposals in this, then I'm for it. I'm not for replacing it completely with this, because it talks about other things like Russia and China that this doesn't mention. So,
right, Dan, this would indeed be an amendment to our current statements. It would not replace anything.
So we have to figure out where the edits go, and then to do it right, we should put the edits in at another convention, because we don't have specifically where it's going to go yet.
I agree.
If I may interject, Jack Stack, please go ahead.
Well, just in the interest of expediting this, and it sounds like the quick approach is to seek consensus to endorse for this proposal from Jack and George to modernize language, and then empower the platform committee to make the platform statement reflect this current assertion, and then acknowledge that Jack and George will go on to national. And I wouldn't take this document to national by any means, but reassert Jack's simple point that international law needs to be premier, and that's what's fallen by the wayside, is one of what I'm hearing Jack saying. So that's my 2 bits.
Thank you, Sir Chuck.
Folks, it's now 10:45. Are we on track to move on at 11 when we need to?
Should we check consensus on this one then?
I need to read some of the comments that came through the chat box about this proposal. Kenneth Kearns mentions, I agree that we should not include specific statements about direct and distinctive violations. And that relates to the mention here of the 2018-2019 about striking that out from the text. And Alan Cohen mentions, I am concerned about the comments attacks to contiguous neighbors. They also attack Israel, and it only weakens the argument. And T. Oliver mentions, does Pacific Green Party support moving capital to Jerusalem as Trump has done? That is what is stated in national platform. I object to that. Dan, you want to speak to those?
I wasn't on the stack, no.
Okay.
Let me interject now.
Jack should be speaking to these
You
folks.
want me to respond to that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, Mr. Desher, please go ahead.
Actually, first of all, the Palestinians are the occupied people who do have the right under international law to resist any way they want to. And if you actually look at the history, it's a myth that Israel was actually ever attacked. They claim they were attacked in 73, for example, But where did those battles take place? They took place in the Sinai and the Golan Heights, which Israel had occupied. And the Arab forces were simply trying to regain the land that was stolen from them in 67. That was not part of Israel. In 1948, the forces that intervened to try to stop the ethnic cleansing aimed to prevent the Zionist forces from taking over the areas that UN Resolution 181 had designated for the Palestinians. So again, and Israel didn't even exist then, in the first place. So anyway, these were defensive actions in both those cases. One was to regain stolen land. If you actually look at the records, nobody's ever attacked Israel, and they've maintained this this fiction to justify their own aggression. So that requires some knowledge of history that, of course, people aren't going to have. And to me, one of the purposes of any sort of platform is educational.
Go ahead, Natalie.
There's another comment. It's called. Jack's comments are Palestinian talking points. I think they're questionable assertions from Alan Cohen. And hold on. And there was another message from, hold on.
April.
But April, it was about the previous proposal that passed. She just commented way late. It was about sex work, legalizing sex work, voluntary sex work.
Okay, can we move on to the next stack?
Go ahead.
Emma, go ahead, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's important that we, and it's probably already in our language, but that we say that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. And as I'm hearing Jack, like at first, like I felt really comfortable with everything that you were proposing, Jack, but as you like go further and further into like your explanation, like it's starting to feel more and more to me like an anti-Semitic statement rather than an anti-Zionist statement. And I think it's really important to make that distinction. And I do question some of, like when you say Israel has never been attacked, that's just crazy. But, you know, I generally support the platform. I mean, I think that it would be better to move on than spend a long time discussing this, because we could basically spend all day on this.
Mr. Hutchinson, would you?
Yes, am I on the stack? I think we should leave this statement as is, including the reference to the number of murders by Israeli snipers in 2018 and 19, because that's a specific date and relatively specific amounts. That fact is not going to change. Yes, Israeli snipers may continue to kill Palestinian protesters, but that's just the way it is. I don't see changing this, and I also don't see worrying about that Jack is making Palestinian talking points. I think Jack has done a tremendous amount of research on this, and many of us have been reading over the last 40 years or so what's going on there. These are observable, documentable truths. So I think we can probably reach consensus or close to it. And
about 10 minutes remaining, folks.
Thank you, but we're gonna need to be on this as long as we're on it, and we need to move on. I agree. George out.
I would like to suggest now to vote, to hold like a vote on it, or maybe consensus vote. And if it didn't work, we can like table it for the next convention, because we need to move on.
Well, a consensus vote is a consensus vote, and if we don't reach consensus, then we go to majority vote.
Yeah. Yep. So what we need to do is we need to close the stack. Chuck was on the stack right before I mentioned to close the stack. Chuck, you want to mention something?
Well, technically, all the moderator needs to do is ask if anybody would block this, and if there's anybody out there that would block this because of language in the document, then it's blocked and it has to be pushed straight to a vote. And it could be a little bit of a scrappy, acrimonious voting event if some people object. I kind of hear some of the hesitations around this to avoid getting lost in granular crimes. And also the claim Israel has never been attacked is problematic, because then we get into the granular nitty-gritty debates about history, and Emma's warning about spending time on that is appropriate. But in the end, I think Jack's simply asserting the importance of elevating international law, and I think that I would counsel Jack and George to agree to peel off the objectionable stuff and reassert the international law, and that's something we all stand by, and I think you would get a consensus, and I'd go for that. I'm done.
Point of order, Natalie.
Thank you. Please, if you want to block this agenda item, please indicate in the chat.
Dan, go ahead.
Yes, because this is not an election and party business. I want everyone to be aware that the supporting member status is required to vote on these. So when we check for blocks, we check for blocks from supporting members, which is as defined in the bylaws.
All right. Are we going, Dan, point of order, Dan, are we going to know who the supporting members are, all of us online right now, or will just Ken know that?
Well, let's check for blocks from supporting members, and if we get blocks from people we know are supporting members, that should be enough, and we won't have to go further.
So far, nobody. Yeah, give me just 1 second. So far, I only got one block from Alan Cohen, and I don't know if he's a supporting member. So is there anyone else would like to block it? Go ahead, Mr. Ken.
Well, I wanted to respond. This is Jack again. I wanted to just respond quickly. The reason I included the recent killing of unarmed civilians was because it's a clear example of using American weapons. Okay.
Mr. Dresser,
the stack is closed.
Yeah. Well, now we have two blocks. I think we're going to need to vote, like majority vote, right?
Who are the ones that are blocking?
I got Natalie and Alex Polikoff.
Okay, and they're both supporting members. Okay.
Yeah, I'm blocking for reword. That's all. I think it's mostly good, but I'm blocking for a reword. So I don't know if we need to reword or reword later, but that's why I'm blocking.
Same here, and it's a wording issue, and also to insert it within the national platform and not just to do something half-baked to the national and pass it to the national.
George here as the facilitator again. Natalie, you've asked me not to resign as facilitator, so I will be it, if I may. Can you, Alex, would you first, since you are one of the blocks, explain what wording you're talking about, wanting to eliminate specifically?
Less than 5 minutes remaining, folks.
Yeah, just item 2, I would reword that as these, you could say current Israeli government or Israeli government, and then I'd be fine with that. And that would just reflect that there are those in Israel that don't believe in what's going on now.
Okay. And then how about if we said current and past Israeli governments?
Well, no, it's the current government that's threatening annexation. So whatever.
Okay.
Just put Israeli governments threatening annexation.
That's fine. And then I kind of agree with Emma about, I mean, I don't know how to reword that stuff about the, I believe Israel was attacked. So I mean, it's true. Israel has attacked and invaded its neighbors. So, I mean, technically that's true, but it does kind of paint, I don't know what to do with that. I mean, I agree that it seems like it kind of detracts from the force of the whole thing, though. So I think I don't know that it's really contributing anything. So I guess if we just remove that sentence, that would be fine. And I guess someone else has a problem with the sniper thing, that it's outdated or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, it seems like that's just. So I guess I don't feel as strongly about that, but.
Thank you, Mr. Polikoff. Mr. Hutchinson, would you like to facilitate?
There was also a mention about Jerusalem, that something about Jerusalem needed to be mentioned in here.
I'm going to let Jack address something about Jerusalem being addressed here. I do have a question about where is the sentence, Alex, that you're referring to about Israel being attacked? I heard
Here,
Jack say that, but I just don't see it.
I'm going to highlight it in the. It's this grayish part.
That doesn't say anything about Israel being attacked. It just pretty much documents what Israel has done over the years.
Yeah, I don't remember saying that in there.
Yeah, and Emma's concern is that it's only one-sided, that Israel has been attacked as well. So.
Yeah, it's if I may. So to follow up, I mean, so the second part of that sentence is fine. It is true. Israel violates human rights of the Palestinian minority. So I don't have an issue with that. I just think the thing about Israel's attacked and invaded, I don't know. It just sounds a bit one-sided. That's all. So even the second part of that sentence would be okay. I just don't see why we're emphasizing that it sounds like Israel's the only state that does attacking, and I disagree with Jack.
1 minute remaining, folks.
So I guess I'm suggesting we just remove up to the point where it says Israel, you could say Israel grossly violates the human rights of the Palestinian minority. I mean, that's fine. So I guess if we just remove the first part of that statement, I think that would give it more force.
Point of order. We have until 11 o'clock for this whole for the whole internal business. Do we agree to extend it by 10 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to extend this by 10 minutes. I want to be on the stack so we can find a resolution.
Can I explain why? And Emma Stack too.
Okay, go ahead, Emma.
Yeah, I would love it if we could include the statement somewhere in there that we, the Pacific Green Party, recognize that although we are anti-Zionist, we are not anti-Semitic, something to that effect. If it's already in our platform, great. Then I basically support this. I think it's really good, especially the first part, the Holocaust education, teaching about the Nakba, teaching about the genocide in America, teaching about slavery. That should all be included in genocide education. Right. Totally.
So what I suggest is this. What I suggest is to see consensus on the general gist of the platform of this proposal and request Emma and Alex to work with Jack to polish the wording and then to send it to see where it fits in the national platform so that we can propose it to the national amendments to the national platform to reflect this wording. Is that a friendly, can that be a friendly amendment, George?
I'm going to let Jack address that.
Jack, can that be a friendly amendment?
Well, I wanted to, first of all, address the issue of Israel attacking its neighbors.
We're not going to be able to.
But just very, very quickly, let me say one thing. They have repeatedly, and that is a violation of the UN Charter, which is in addition to the violation of Palestinian rights, because they've attacked in 1967, they attacked Syria, they attacked Egypt, they attacked Jordan, they've attacked Lebanon 2 or 3 times. Every one of their contiguous neighbors has been attacked and invaded and some part occupied by Israel throughout its history. And so that's a very specific violation. These are all violations of international law that the U.S. has protected Israel from in the United Nations Security Council. There have been 45 times there have been Security Council resolutions against Israeli aggression that have been vetoed by the United States.
We need to.
Sorry for interjecting, Mr.
I'm going
Professor.
to request Charles. I'm going to request Charles to moderate because George is a proposal and it's making it very difficult for us to moderate. Charles, would you mind picking up the moderation?
I'm not muted, so okay.
Yes. So there's a friendly amendment to review the wording, mesh it with the national convention and send it with the national platform and send it like edited to the national for inclusion in this year's platform. Can you moderate, take it from there, please?
I think I would ask for consensus on that.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Do we have blocks on that?
Well, so far we have only 2, and it's about the wording.
No, it's though Jack and George who made this proposal, do they accept this as a friendly amendment?
So I think that, as I understand it, the proposal then is to pass the, what should we say, the gist of this, and pending set up a committee to refine the wording. The main purpose being to send it to national, since it's a national policy issue, and national needs to update. I'd agree. Jack and George, do you see that as acceptable?
George is going to defer to Jack.
There are refinements I'd like to see, but I would actually support it as it is. George? George defers to Jack. Jack, what do you think?
Well, I think the issue about Israel attacking.
Okay, Jack.
Let me finish. We should add that the U.S. has protected Israel in the Security Council from international discipline, remaining. And that needs to be changed. We need to call for the U.S. to stop vetoing UN resolutions to discipline Israel for its aggression.
One of our national delegates mentions that the time for modification to the national platform has closed for the year.
So basically, we'd be putting this in our platform. This was predictable. Is this actually meant for our platform, Jack?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Our platform, and we still forward it on to national, Charles, even though somebody has just stated that the national platform is now officially closed for the year. It would still go on to national, and it can and should become some new wording in the national platform in the future.
Let me go ahead and give the mic to Alex de Blasi. Go ahead, Alex, and be short, please.
For sure. As you address the reading, I encourage you to maybe bring the YDF. There's some journalists that be a lot about how they're trained to kill.
We cannot hear you.
We can't hear you, Alex.
No?
We cannot hear you.
We could before, but not
Hear you now.
Yeah,
It's still
that's better.
echoes. Okay, try it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Alex?
He dropped off.
I think we move on to the next stack. Dan, go ahead.
Okay, so in the context of national not taking proposals right now, and if making this into edits for our own platform, as I mentioned before, we already have quite a bit of it in there already, so it's going to be need to be rewritten as edits. Jack, the amendment is that Natalie's made is, to me, just basically calling for a rewrite, and it's going to have a rewrite anyway to be a specific platform proposal, because it has to say exactly where it's going to go and what it's going to replace. So are you and George willing to lead our effort on that?
And as moderator, let me add that we have another convention in August. So that would be, that's before the campaigns will get going, I hope. So I could see rewriting it to deal with in August.
Yeah, that's fine.
Great. So what we're going to do is we're going to table this for a vote in August. And I am the one who submitted the proposal regarding admonishment of Green Party representatives. What I'm going to suggest is that we table it for August so that we can move to the nomination portion of the convention. Is there any opposition to this?
Well, do we need now to get votes on this platform before moving to the next agenda item?
Tabled.
It's tabled for August. So Jack and possibly Emma and whoever is interested in participating in the adjustment of the proposal, please contact the SEC so we can put you in contact and you can create a small committee, reword it, and it's going to be resubmitted for the convention in August. Anybody opposed?
Thank you. I will join that committee.
Great. Okay. Anybody opposed to moving the proposal regarding admonishment of Green Party representatives to August?
He actually had a block from Oliver. He wants a floor vote.
You want the floor vote on that?
We're at 10 minutes, folks.
Oliver, I don't know what you want the floor vote on. Can you specify what you want the floor vote on?
The Palestinian-Israeli platform.
I'm not clear.
Yeah, there's been a lot of time and energy that's been put into this. And as a matter of fact, 2 years ago, Jack brought up at the Lake Oswego convention these issues 2 years ago. And it keeps getting pushed down. We have serious things to do here. All I'm asking for is let's do an up or down vote and give the respect to the people that want to push this. If any modifications want to happen in August, we can modify our platform anytime we want, folks. We're in control of our platform. But it's very important right now that we take a stand. Israel just killed a 4-year-old girl.
Okay, so Jack was in agreement to resubmit and it is his proposal. He was in agreement to resubmit it in August. And because we are going to do it in August.
We can do it in August. I'm saying let's do an up or down vote. I want to know what candidates are blocking this move. If you're seeking nomination and blocking this, we need to know that.
And you know why? I block because the wording needs to be reworded.
We can do any rewording in August.
Fuck you.
As facilitator, we can, I think we can pass it subject to rewording to fit it into the platform, because it's not formatted for the platform as it is, which is something of a point of order. So my thought is that whether we table it, that we accept the purpose of or the sense, that we accept the sense of the proposal and send it back for rewrite to join the platform in August. Would that satisfy Oliver?
Yeah, is Jack cool with that?
I don't see Jack now. Jack?
He specifically mentioned that he was okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. This thing keeps unmuting for some reason, or it keeps muting on its own.
We keep muting people, sir. Sorry for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of managing the meeting. So, do we have any blocks to that proposal to rewrite basically to make it fit the platform?
Okay, so I think it's tabled. Jack, you have my personal commitment that it will be voted on in August. I personally commit to make it happen.
Almost. Not just that, but we should also on pushing forward the genocide education. I think that's something so tangible that we can actually be doing as a party, is educating people on all of the different, on the Nakba, on, you know, slavery, on, I mean, we should.
Emma, we cannot hear you. I'm sorry.
Just one point here. Please, if you want to speak, just let me know on the stack, because everyone is talking. It's not really good for organizing. Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready to move on?
I think so.
Looks like. Okay.
What happened to George?
Well, I don't know.
Maybe he's muted.
I'll cover for him for now. What's next on the agenda? Where's the agenda?
We have nomination of the nomination of state and local candidates.
Yes, beginning with the contested PGP race for U.S. Senate candidate. So the plan, the agenda is, each gets 5 minutes for a presentation, and then there will be 10 minutes for questions and answers. These are fairly short times, folks, because we need to break for lunch sometime today. Well, in alphabetical order, we'll have Emma go first. Emma, are you ready for a 5-minute presentation?
Sure. Yeah, I'm ready. And yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, my apologies for not being on my phone, and so don't have the video option. But thank you so much. My name is Emma Lugo, and I'm the secretary of the Pacific Green Party. And I want to start by saying that I think it's really great that this is a contested race. I feel like the U.S. Senate should be a contested race, and my other candidate, Ibrahim, is a wonderful, tremendous candidate who contributes so much to the party and to the state coordinating committee. And I just want to say, first of all, that no matter which one of us you choose, you'll be making a good choice. And I hope that by the end of the convention today, if you're not running for office, that maybe you'll consider running. The reason that I'm running for U.S. Senate is because I think it's really important to push an agenda of peace and anti-racism and also anti-Zionism, which I strongly endorse. I think that we also need to make sure that we focus on the ecological and environmental issues that Oregonians care so much about, such as Jordan's Cove and the Elliott State Forest. I've been with the party for 25 years. I first got involved in the campaign of Ralph Nader back in 1996. I met Ralph Nader, and then I got even more involved in 2000 during that campaign. My first experience running for public office was in 2004. I ran for U.S. Senate when Harold Ford was running for U.S. Senate in Tennessee. And Harold Ford was a Democrat who supported invading Iraq, which I just found so offensive. And so I decided to run against him. My most recent one was in 2014. I ran for U.S. Senate against Senator Jeff Merkley. And I ran against Senator Merkley in 2014 because at that time, Israel was basically mass murdering Palestinians, people in Gaza. They killed over 600 children during the 2014 incursion against Gaza. And it basically left Gaza in total rubble. And it just was a complete waste. And to think that our U.S. Senator from the state of Oregon was supporting Israel was so offensive. And so I ran against Senator Merkley at that time. I'm running again just because I intended to run last year, and then Ibrahim stepped up and he said he wanted to run too. And so I haven't been really campaigning very actively. I mean, I really like Ibrahim. There are some things that Ibrahim said recently that really were of concern to me. And so I decided to step back in just so that there was a choice and so that the race was at least contested. I think it is important, like for all of our races, we need to treat it like we're really a party and like this is something that we care about. And, we need to hear from everyone and hear what their positions are and, kind of make up our choices based on that. And we shouldn't just be like, I mean, I think it's great that we have people running, but we should generate enough involvement in the party so that we actually have choices. So my hope for the next year, if I run for U.S. Senate, will be to really actively promote the party. I'd like to, because of CDC distancing guidelines, I'd really like to get the governor to sign on to a waiver on the signature requirements for candidates. Thank you. And, my goal is to get maybe like 2%, somewhere between 2 and 3% of the vote to help maintain ballot access. No matter what, we need to make sure that we run 2 statewide candidates so that if there's a problem with one, we've still got the other one to maintain ballot access. And going into the next year, my goal is to really help build up the Portland party. I've really seen how important it is. Parties really have to grow from the ground up. And the Portland chapter right now is very weak. And it shouldn't be, because Portland is the strongest city in America. I mean, in Oregon. And you see what's going on right now. We had 9 days of protest in Oregon with Black Lives Matter and the murder of George Floyd. And Portland is a vibrant, active city. And the Green Party should really be leading, an entire movement of those people. And right now we're just not doing enough. So my goal after the campaigns are over is to really work on rebuilding the Portland party. Thank you. I'm done.
Thanks.
Thank you, Emma, for the presentation. My name is Abraham Taher. I'm a philosopher, a father of 3, and an anti-war activist. I just decided to get involved in politics just recently for one reason, because the way that our political system is being built is really counterproductive in many ways. That people in many in many fields, in many activism groups from different spectrums, from left and right, tried to reform the country, but they couldn't. But there's something changed started from 2017, and this is what I have noticed, and partially because of the internet and the flow of the information. Then I decided to get involved in politics because now there's a hope for a change, and this is what got me interested in running. Before that, I was researching in philosophy. I have a master's in philosophy, and in philosophy we research and talk about a lot of things that is related to society. We talk about moral philosophy. So what defines the moral values that we have, and what defines the political system? What kind of perfect political system that we have? What kind of social structure that we have? And this is a missing point from all of the politicians, and this is what I would like to the Green Party to start tackling here. We have social structure, and this social structure is influenced by economy, and the economy is influenced by politics, but we don't have this connection. People, when they talk about politics, they talk about just merely like an abstract law, and they don't see the correlation, the relation with the social structure, and why is our mental health is being affected. Why? There's a reason for this. Partially, we study it in philosophy of mind, and this is what got me a lot of wide ideas. In philosophy, we talk about the depth of things. That's why we call it philosophy. I don't want to talk about philosophy a lot, but I'm trying to explain how my academic training enabled me to see a wide spectrum of things that it is absent in politics, but we need it because it is influencing every aspect of our lives. This is like the academic background. When I joined the party, I just joined recently.
2 minutes remaining.
The purpose and the goal of my run is to end this atrocity that we see every day. Mainly, I'm concerned a lot about our foreign policy and imperialism. This issue is the main issue. If we want to talk about our political state of affairs right now, we can divide it to two things. One of them is foreign policy and domestic policy. Foreign policy is involved now in more than 30 countries around the world. We have 800 military bases. We're actually controlling the world. Half of the world actually is obeying, and maybe the other fourth of the world is trying just to survive, and the other fourth is trying to resist. And this is a catastrophe. We're not promoting peace, and this is a main issue that I got involved in politics because of it. And the second issue is the economic status of our country. It is collapsing. If you have not noticed, and when I talk about the economy is collapsing, I'm talking about the people.
1 minute.
Is collapsing, and that has a lot to do with the structure of the economy. It's not about socialism. It's not about capitalism. I don't talk about these terms. Those terms distract the people. I talk about different issues. I hope that you can go to my website. Anyhow, I started campaigning 9 months ago with determination and with a clear goal. And so far, I've reached at least 300,000 Oregonian, according to the statistics that they have. I've been campaigning really hard as I'm winning. I didn't expect Emma to jump back in the race, but this is democracy. Thank you.
Okay, so please join the stack if you have questions for one or the other.
Well, I couldn't keep any stack here. So if anyone wants to ask question, please indicate in the chat. Thanks.
Okay, Oliver, I'm going to request that you keep your chats focused on the presenters and on the convention. If you have a problem about something about the local chapter, please bring it up to the state coordinating committee. Otherwise, I'm going to have to mute you on the chat because you are not allowing others to participate or to see what's coming up in the chat. Anybody has any questions? Go ahead,
yeah.
Michael.
Michael Sunleitner. I'm not sure how to join a stack, so I hope I'm not
Just go on the chat and put stack and your name. But I'm putting on you on the stack.
Okay. Am I on now or later?
Now, go ahead.
Thank you. Greetings, folks. I'm sorry I arrived late. I have a question for Emma, and then I'd like to hear a response from Abraham. Emma, what did Abraham say that was of concern to you that led you to join back in the race? And then I would like to have Abraham respond to that concern.
Sure. So, well, there were a couple of things. I mean, first of all, I never really left the race. I mean, I filled out the candidate forms like 3 months ago when they were doing the vetting for candidates, and they asked candidates to please fill out the forms ahead of time. My website has been up the whole time. So I never really left the race, but I stepped back because I really wanted to see how things were going. And, but I got a couple of calls from members of the party who were concerned and asked me to please step back up. And so I thought about that. And then there was a post that came up on Facebook maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was a post kind of questioning, it was basically saying that there were some scientists that didn't support the stay-at-home order, and I was really I'm really concerned that we make sure that whoever we run for U.S. Senate this year is a really solid candidate, and the only way that we know that is by making sure that people have a choice ahead of time. So I want, because I've been through so many years where we selected somebody and then sometime into the middle of the campaign season, they said that they're big supporters of the timber industry, or, we recalled them for some other reason. And so I just wanted to make sure that I stayed in the race so that there was a choice. You all know who I am. You know what I do. You've known me for a while. So, and Ibrahim has really gotten to know the SCC too. So, I really want people to make a choice based on your understanding and your knowledge of both of us as candidates, and who you would really prefer to support, really be there for the party during election season. So that was the reason I stepped from passive into more of an active role.
Okay.
Well, if I may respond, it was a post about the legal lawsuit that was being pushed against the stay-at-home order. And one of the things that I would like people to know about is I'm a philosopher, and I worked as a teacher for 4 years. And in philosophy, we teach critical thinking. And one of the basic ideas that we talk is the fallacies in critical thinking. And one of the things that Emma said is that Abraham doesn't trust the CDC, which is the fallacy of appealing to authority. And this is a fallacy. We teach it for the beginners in the logical thinking. And this is one. And two, yes, this is true. A lot of scientists actually coming out saying that there's benefit when they assess the risk benefit, and with this measure that was taken, the whole total lockdown is not beneficial for the people. And we saw that with a lot of other issues right now. And this is why a lot of states start closing it up, and some of them is not taken Sorry, I was reading the chat. So some of the states didn't apply it, and we saw it in different issues, and it was not the only option. And this is what I wanted the parties to discuss it with me. And one of the things that I always say, I'm not a god, so I don't know anything, and I'm human. So yes, I teach logic to people and critical thinking, but I make mistake. And this is what most of the people refused. When Emma attacked me, actually, she didn't ask why I am saying this. And this should be concerning if someone is not ready to have an honest discussion with the other. And this is what we need in leaders. And this is what I proposed. And I think I gave my number several times to everyone on the listserv, even the people I don't know. But nobody called me except for 2 people. They were listening and we discussed it together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there more questions for the candidates?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Alan.
So Ibrahim, I appreciate your energy, and one thing I really wish you'd run for something like state rep or something like that. But because I agree with them. I mean, the Senate race is kind of those statewide races are the face of the party. So we really need to have a good face, since that's going to get the most media coverage. And that's what people are going to see. So I just have a concern. I appreciate it when you came to the Lynn Benton chapter and spoke to us a couple of times. So my question to you is, my concern is it seemed like you emphasized mostly about how bad Merkley is. Like you mentioned, Merkley's got blood on his hands because of his Mideast policy, and called him Saint Merkley and so on. So what I would like to hear is, so my concern is you're going to spend most of the time criticizing Merkley instead of proffering, progressive green values. I don't hear a lot about that from you. So could you respond to that? And maybe Emma, if you want to respond to that as well.
Yeah, sure. Have you checked my platform? Have you checked my Facebook and Twitter?
No, I haven't looked at your Facebook, but I did look at your website.
I think, do you see any attack on Merkley criticizing him in my website? No. Have you followed me on Twitter and social media? I have nearly 4,000 posts since I started campaigning. How many of them is about Merkley? Can you say that? Maybe less than 5. Then I don't know why do you get the idea that I am just focusing on criticizing Merkley. I don't know. I don't think it's a valid question.
Well, from your conversation with us, that's where I got that. So that's why I'm asking you now too.
Yeah, so that's private conversation with you, so that you know why my plan to run against Merkley is really grounded, and it's not just running. It's not just running because we're running against someone who needs to be removed from his seat. This is why I said I have clear plan. I know what I'm doing. Not just about running. I don't have ambition to run as a candidate. I don't. If I can't change things without going into this hustle. I have 3 kids. My wife was pregnant. I took all this time to run a campaign for 9 months. And now my son is 5 months old. I see him just an hour a day. And this has been happening for 6 months right now, since he was born. I work a very low-wage job. And I'm working like 8 hours a day. And on top of that, I am organizing a late chapter, and I am on the SCC, and I'm running this campaign alone. And I am achieving all of this, not because I don't have plan, not because I have ambition. I'd rather like spend my time and my family, get my PhD that I couldn't hold, move to another state to get a job because I lost it when I moved back to Eugene from Minnesota. Anyhow, so this is why I was talking with the Greens that I know what I'm doing. And I just hope that you spend more time talking to me before any such question. Thank you.
Should I respond to your question, Alex?
Go ahead, Emma.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. So I think that, like, at least for me personally, my goal in terms of talking about progressive environmental issues is really to use the U.S. Senate race as a platform for really pushing forward like our green values. So like our values from our 10 key values and our four pillars. And, also to really push the Green New Deal. I mean, I think that the Green New Deal is one of those things that we need to reclaim back from the Democrats. The Democrats have kind of taken our language and they've used it, in a way that kind of benefits them. And now I think that we can take advantage of that too while we're running for office by kind of like, saying, hey, we're the originators of this Green New Deal. This is really our idea. And it's not just about, it's not just about like clean energy. It's also about jobs. It's about education. It's about housing. It's about all of these things that we really value. The same kinds of things that people are shouting in the streets right now here in Portland. It's about justice, It's justice. And I want to use the U.S. Senate race as a way of like really pushing that agenda. And at the same time, I really hope to use it as a way of helping to build our parties, build a party here in Portland around excitement for our presidential candidate and for all of our statewide candidates and also for our 3rd congressional district candidates. And, in Lane County and in Eugene and Corvallis and Ashland, I mean, there's a lot of energy and there's a lot of interest right now in the party. And so like the more people that we can get running for office and the more visible that we are, including at the federal races, that, I think we'll have a better chance of really making the party relevant. And no matter what, we have to make sure to maintain our ballot access. So we have to have at least 2 strong statewide candidates running. So anyways, that's what I intend to do.
Okay, on the stack, I want to read Mike Beilstein's comment. And if I can find it just a second, here it is. So Mike Beilstein in his chat mentions, I was very concerned about Ibrahim Tahir's solicitation for people to join the lawsuit to challenge the governor's isolation protocols. If you could very briefly respond to that, Ibrahim. And first, I want Amy to give us a little time.
It's
what was that again?
It's almost 20 to 12, so almost 11:40.
So how much time do we have on this?
You said we began at 11:28, so we're now about a minute over.
Okay, do you all want to extend time for this?
It's all right with me.
Yes.
Okay, and we're going to extend for 2 minutes,
Sure.
so until
2. Okay.
So what was your question, Natalie?
Okay, so Mike says, I was very concerned about Ibrahim Tahir's solicitation for people to join the lawsuit to challenge the governor's isolation protocol.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Briefly. And then
again, how do you assume something if you don't really talk to me about it? I don't know. I don't know why I'm getting these such of questions. Nobody asked me about it. So how do you assume, like, where did I solicit for a lawsuit? Where? That's really weird. Yeah, I did repost. Do you know how does it work? Repost something that there's a lawsuit without any comment. This is all I did. This is all. And I didn't delete it. Just make it there. I made it there available for you to see it because I got attacked without being asked why. This is, I don't think this is an ethical thing to assume that someone is bad, someone doesn't know how to judge things without asking them. It's not ethical.
Emma, you want to reply?
I'm not sure what I would reply to. I never said anything about joining the lawsuit. I just mentioned that there was, the statement about that there were some scientists who, and I felt like it was, it was a statement that I felt was a little bit controversial, and I was getting a lot of feedback from other members of the party and people outside the party who were really concerned about it. So, and Ibrahim has responded to that.
Okay, great.
And I really appreciate that. This is a U.S. Senate race. It doesn't belong to anyone until the votes are all in.
Okay.
Once the votes are in, the candidate's chosen.
Okay. So we have time. We have Chuck and then on the stack, and we need to close the stack. I will make my time a little bit briefer. Okay. Chuck, go ahead.
Ibrahim, I was involved with Natalie to talk about the controversy that was kicked up when you posted that Facebook thing about the lawsuit suing the governor. And it created a lot of confusion because people do make assumptions about things. And I think one of the things you're struggling with in terms of getting people to vote to support you to be the senator is the manner in which you speak about things. And maybe you're speaking like a philosopher in ways that leaves questions in people's minds. So one of the things and I just want to respond to Alex, who made an observation. I think he asked the question, why aren't you more upfront with the green platform values and so on? And so I observe that you're more concerned with issues of the power of the state, issues of authority, you're anti-authoritarian. And this is what I think drives you more than perhaps saving the earth, saving a forest of trees, protecting the oceans. I don't know. I don't assume that you are in any way against green values, but it seems that you're putting forth more of an anti-authoritarian message, but you've lost people in your questioning and your openness to exploring stuff. So that's what I think is raising concerns, but I think you need to answer, and I guess what I'd be like to know is, where do you see yourself on this continuum of ideas and what's driving you and why you should represent the Green Party? So I'll shut up with that. That's kind of my remark.
Well, I think, Mr. Fogg, you're right. What you've seen from me in the past 2 months is focused on the state, let's say, overreach to the people and what is happening. And this was like circumstantial. Before that, it was like a variety of things. You can just like go back to my post and the wall, and you could see I talk about everything. I focus a lot about the anti-war activism because it is absent from the discussion, and it is related to the Green Deal, and it is related to the economy, and it is related to oppression. It is related to justice. It is a main issue. This is why I said
it's quarter till. I apologize. Do we need to sum up? I apologize. Do we need to sum up since it's 11:45?
Dan, you're the last person on the stack. I'm going to request that questions and answers be super brief because at this time we're going to be having to cut off some of the times for other candidates. Dan?
Okay. This party was founded as an anti-war party, and that is the focus of your campaign. Ibrahim, briefly, could you describe your views on war and foreign policy and how you plan to oppose Merkley on the subject?
And Emma will reply.
The approach to the anti-war movement is currently mainly dominated by the Democrats, which is they talk about the War Power Act, which is they require the Congress permission to go to war. It's not about sorry?
See what I mean? Sorry about that. I don't want
Should I go ahead?
People, but it's just hard to read. where we are.
I'm going to mute you. It's not about the international law. And for me, it is about human rights, because international law was based when they reached that international law in the 1940s. They based it on human rights. So this is the basis. So there's an ethical aspect for it, and there's a legal aspect for it, and there's economic aspect for it. And this is why this is what I intend to raise the awareness and talk about when I run. Merkley actually was one of the worst.
We need to make it brief, and Emma should be able to reply.
Actually, one of the worst people. He supported every war and every hegemonic plan that was under Obama, and now continued with Trump. He just recently voted on one of the submitted a letter to Trump to stop withdrawing from Syria, which is a violation of the international law. So,
okay, thanks. Can I respond?
Yes, please.
Okay, thanks. So I think that for me personally, what I would need to push forward as an anti-war message is I think that we need to seriously defund the U.S. military budget. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of $700 billion, and we need to drastically slash that down to maybe $100 billion or even less, and redirect most of that funding to domestic priorities and to peace building. I think that we need to close our military bases all around the world. Our military bases are one of the locus of how we are this imperialistic power. So we need to do that. We definitely need to close Guantanamo Bay. That's just been around for way too long. We need to prosecute U.S. war criminals, people who have waged war in the name of the United States, including elected officials here in the United States who are responsible for the murder of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people globally. And, I think that Ibrahim and I are both on the same page on this. I think we both feel very strongly that, anti-war peace is really the focus of, should be one of the most important messages that we put out there as U.S. Senate candidates.
Well, there's one more thing I would like to see.
Time. I think we need to move on, Ibrahim.
Yeah, well, there's a difference. That's why. Anyhow,
okay.
A small one, but
yeah, each candidate had about a minute and a half. Is that good?
So go ahead. I'm gonna retract. A small one.
Thank you, Ibrahim. And Emma, are we ready to move on to the uncontested races? So people presumably, at least one said she was going off to vote. Which is in the OPA votes are in the OPA vote ballots, are in the email that you received in response to so I think we're done. We're certainly out of time with the Senate race for now. And the other statewide race is Secretary of State. And we have only one person running for that, who's actually controlling certainly what I see. So, how much time are we supposed to have for that? Okay, so she's got 3 minutes, and there's 5 minutes for discussion.
What we're going to do is each candidate is going to speak, and we're going to have a Q&A at the end for everybody. For all of the candidates.
That's right, I remember that. Thank you.
So I'm going to make mine very brief for the sake of time. I'm running for Secretary of State, and my major key issues are corporate personhood, the rights of nature. I'm working very closely with the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund and the Oregon Community Rights Organization network. And so the whole issue of corporate rights and nature rights are going to be very central. Corporate personhood and corporate rights include also the concept that money is free speech. So I'm going to be focusing on on campaign finance reform, and I do support very much the Honest Elections Initiative. a lot about those things can be found on my website. What I wanted to focus on is I'm going to be updating my website. I'm going to be creating my own independent website, separate from the Pacific Greens website. And I'm going to be including specific volunteering opportunities. For example, we're getting a list of phone numbers. I'm going to need some people to volunteer to do like maybe 10, 20 calls a week. So if you have time to volunteer, please go to my website after this weekend and you will find the opportunities. I also want someone to make a listing of conservative radio talk shows across the state. Because of COVID, we're not going to be traveling that much in the summer, but I definitely want to do a lot of interviews and phone interviews, and I want someone to volunteer, or a couple of people to volunteer to help me create a list of media that we can outreach and do outreach. And I'm interested actually in the conservative voters. I tend to like speaking with them more than with the progressive. And we need also people to help Chuck write press releases and putting them out and pushing our information onto media, create our own content that we're going to push into media. So that's another volunteering opportunity. And I'm looking also for people.
1 minute remaining.
Thank you. And graphic design. Okay. So next candidate.
Are you done, Natalie?
Yes, I am. Alex?
All right. Can y'all hear me?
Clear.
All right. I decided to turn the video off since I'm just on my phone. All right. So I'm running for Oregon's 3rd Congressional District, which includes most of Portland and I believe all of Multnomah County. The incumbent is Earl Blumenauer. He's a career politician. He's been at it for 40 years. This is his 12th bid for re-election. And one thing that really motivated me to run was him saying near the end of primary season that he didn't even have to campaign those last few months. Albert Lee, who was one of his primary challengers in the Democratic Party, is someone that I know from working together at a nonprofit. And I think he would have been the guy for the job. He's certainly in like the Bernie Sanders mold of progressivism and progressive values. And had Albert Lee gotten the nomination, I wouldn't be running in this race. But that's just right off the bat. I don't want to make it just about my opponent. I also want to make it about me and who I am. I've been involved in civil rights activism since 2009. In 2012, I was trained in Washington, D.C. by the Sikh Coalition to engage with government, media, and the public on matters related to civil rights, specifically racial profiling and religious civil liberties. In 2013, I traveled across the United States. I spent 10 months traveling across 48 states, and the understanding of American society that I gained from that experience is immeasurable. Furthermore, I am 100% on board with the anti-war agenda. Part of why I decided to run again was I was inspired by the candidacy of Tulsi Gabbard, and also as a fellow Hindu American.
About 1 minute remaining.
Okay, I do believe Black Lives Matter. And I have been out in the streets in these protests, peacefully engaging with non-violent protesters and with violent protesters, encouraging them to do the right thing, and also speaking to members of the police force, asking them about why they're out and getting their feelings about the situation, not just in Portland, but nationwide. It's compared to other cities, what's happening in Portland is admittedly very tame. I support reclaiming the Green New Deal. I liked it the first time before the Democrats plagiarized it. This was something I talked about with the Jamu Baraka a couple years ago, that it was going to happen, that they were going to take it and co-opt it and turn it into something that sucks, frankly. It's time for us to take that back, because the original legislation as drafted, I think by Howie Hawkins, is comprehensive with labor reform, human rights reform, infrastructure, as well as environmental issues. I think it's time that these fake progressive Democrats get attacked from the left, and I intend to promote the Green Party within Portland and to help grow, and I'm willing to help with statewide races. Was that 5 minutes?
Just about. Sorry, the stopwatch is kind of temperamental, but I did the best I could. Can we let him go another 30 seconds? Would that be all right?
I think we should move on.
Okay.
Is Daniel Hoffe here?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Because this is somebody I don't know.
Yes, he's from Lane Chapter.
Daniel, we've got it's your turn. Is he muted?
I can't find him.
I saw a message from Daniel, but now I don't see. To save time, let's have Alex speak. I know he's with us and we'll come back to Daniel. So Alex Polikoff is running for Oregon State Representative, District 23.
Charles, point of order.
Yeah.
Daniel apparently got disconnected from the call. I'm going to try to help him rejoin.
Okay. So we'll let us know when he's back on. Thank you, Dan.
Okay, well, I'm Alex Polikoff. I'm in Corvallis, and I'm running for state rep, District 23, currently held by Mike Neerman. I've been a Green Party member since 2008. I ran for U.S. Congress against Kurt Schrader in 2008 because I was sick of, I said I was a recovering Democrat because I was just sick of the Democrats supporting the wars in Iraq and elsewhere. I've run for this seat in 2012, 2014, and 2016. Sat out last election, and we co-nominated a Democrat, Danny Jaffer, for that. My background, I'm an engineer, recently retired. I'm a CASA advocate. I was a firefighter, volunteer firefighter. More importantly, I'm on the legislative committee for Mid-Valley healthcare advocates, fighting for universal healthcare in Oregon. So as far as my platform goes, that's going to be one of the main things is publicly funded. We're trying not to use single payer anymore. Publicly funded universal healthcare for Oregon, because I've been involved in that fight for over a decade now. Apart from that, I don't think we can have true democracy until we get money out of politics. So campaign finance reform and election reform are high on my list. I was on the organizing committee for the ranked choice voting effort here in Benton County. I was out there collecting signatures, and we got ranked choice voting here. There will be an effort to apply ranked choice voting or star vote, whatever, preference voting statewide. So I'll be involved in that. And I'll be pushing that as a platform during my campaign. Campaign finance reform, we need campaign finance limits. I mean, that's one of the things my opponent, Republican opponent, he's financed by anti-gay, anti-abortion groups, pharmaceuticals. Until we get money out of politics, we can't level the playing field. So
1 minute remaining.
Thanks. Just a couple other things. If you look at, if I shared my screen, I could show you my campaign brochure. It basically hasn't changed in 10 years. So I'll be fighting for the things I've always fought for: living wage, an Oregon State Bank. I would like to establish. That's kind of gone away, but we want to keep our money here and not give it to Wells Fargo and Chase and all the other banksters. And I would like to see, as far as, I'm in the power business, I would like to see 100% renewable energy, and along with that, a real carbon tax, not the cap and trade, in order to do our part to keep the planet from burning up. So with that, I'll pass on to the next person.
Okay, we have Hafe back.
Time.
Dan?
Yeah.
Is Daniel ready, or?
Daniel Hoffey,
Yeah, I'm trying to.
If he's not,
are you back?
He's here, yeah.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
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 Yeah, we can. Go ahead.
Well, a little bit about me. I was a commercial fisherman in Alaska for close to 30 years. Artist, single father. I work in healthcare now. Been living in Oregon about 13 years. I'm absolutely opposed to war. It is the driving force behind all my thinking. I think we need to get rid of the duopoly that's strangled us for the better, my entire life, pretty much. yeah, money out of politics. We need to put the definition of national security back into the people's hands rather than corporate hands. Got to break up the media monopoly completely. It's choking us. There's no faith left in pretty much any institution in this country anymore. The Green New Deal, I think we need to fund it like the Apollo project. Like we went to put someone on the moon. I mean, we need to do this in a big way, put people back to work. We need to educate them and create a society of people that know how to actually restore the environment and protect it. And as for corporations, they do not need to be people. They are property, and that's that. It's illegal to own a person as far as I know. And if there's going to be incorporation, then it needs to be on the basis of public service, like hospitals and universities and libraries and things like that. Let's see, I'd like to return currency back to public hands rather than private hands. We don't need to be borrowing our own money. It's a public utility facilitating trade and goods and services. It's ours.
1 minute remaining.
And anyway, we need to end war. We need to end militarization of police. We need to outlaw the commerce and weapons of mass destruction. And we need to revisit a lot of our alliances, one in particular, which kind of seemed to take up a lot of our time this afternoon. But anyway, I just think we need to choose life here. That's it. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Who is, no, thank you. Is Tim Daney on the line? If he isn't, I will speak for him. Tim? Okay, there's his.
What? All right.
Tim?
Okay, my name is Tim Daney.
Ah, good.
I'm out here in Scioto, Oregon. I'm going to be running for House District 17, currently held by Sherry Springer, Republican. She has opted not to run for a seat that she could easily win. Instead, she's running for county commissioner. And very interestingly, there was, in the primary, there was only one Democrat, so she'll be running. And there were 6 Republicans in the primary. And the one that won took me by surprise. She was the least attached to attaching herself to Trump, whereas 3 of the candidates were definitely attaching themselves to President Trump. And she was the one that was most not attaching herself. And she is most focused on the Lebanon area. But District 17 includes Sweet Home, Lebanon, Lacombe, Crabtree, Scioto, Staten, Mill City, Lyons, Gates, Adana, Detroit. It's quite a large district. Awesomely, it includes Opal Creek Wilderness area. And it's a place where hemp has taken a strong hold. And I will be focusing on healthcare for all of Oregon for sure, because I think that no matter who you are, your political persuasion, you have to be for that, especially if you're for businesses being able to, improve themselves.
1 minute remaining.
Okay. And also, I will support IP34. I was part of that campaign to get that on the ballot. And I will be, and I'll just say that I'm tried to be part of the community out here. When I moved out here, I was warned about moving out to this area and Lynn County especially. But I'm having a great time, and I'm having such a good time. I'm going to be having such a good time on the campaign trail, going back and forth from the border with Warm Springs Indian Reservation all the way around to Sweet Home and beyond. So I look forward to this campaign.
Thank you, Tim. So who is next? I don't actually have there it is. So next is Mike Beilstein, seeking the Benton County Board of Commissioners. And I will say for him, because I'm from Benton, I'm from Corvallis as well, that this is a fairly big deal. We passed ranked choice voting here in Corvallis in Benton County. And so this will be the first time we're trying to use it. So Mike, are you ready to speak?
Yeah, I'm here.
Right.
Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. I can't see. I guess my video's on. I can't see it. For some reason, it's stuck on Charles.
We can actually see you.
Okay. Well, I can't.
I can see you.
Good. Anyway, well, yeah, I'm Mike Beilstein. I'm running for Benton County Commissioner. This will be the first race in which the county commissioners are elected using ranked choice voting. I actually ran for county commissioner 20 years ago in Benton County, and I thought I ran a pretty good race, but I got 17% of the vote, which, you know, it was, and the Democrat got over 50%. So it was a interesting race back then, but it made me realize that with the two-party system, there really wasn't any option for a third party to break in. That just their stranglehold was too great. So this you know, creates an opportunity where I think I can pull votes of a lot of I guess progressive radicals, at least as a second choice, and I can present a real Green New Deal program for Benton County. And I think that's important that all Green candidates really put the Green New Deal forward as their platform. I think this is going to be largely dropped by the Democratic Party, you know, since with Joe Biden leading their ticket. So I think this creates an opportunity for Greens to reassert the Green New Deal as ours, and not some fake thing created by the Democrats. So I think also that, you know, we have faced kind of a slowdown or shutdown or a reset on our economy because of the COVID-19 crisis. And I think we need to be careful as we recover from this that we don't go back. And I think we need to make that a part of our campaign, that we don't go back to just, you know, things as they were, which was
1 minute remaining.
A situation that was not working too well for people before. So in my campaign, my main goal is to reach every voter in the county. I have a set of goals, you know, that are all around this concept of a Green New Deal for Benton County, and I'm hoping that that whether I can win the election or not, at least I'm offering an opportunity for people to say that they're not satisfied with the way things are, and that we need to move on to a more rational, more ecologically sensible, more democratic, and healthier way to live. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So moving along, is Chris Henry available to speak? Chris is seeking a co-nomination. He's a former Green. Some of us have known him for a long time. Chris, are you here?
I don't see him.
George Stack.
George?
Yeah, I gave Chris a call. He did sign up to attend the convention. However, he is an over-the-road truck driver with very long hours. He drives nights. He's, according to his voicemail, he's currently asleep. So he's probably not going to speak. I would like to say a brief few words just to encourage people to read his page, which you folks now have up on for our edification. I read it in full. He's a great candidate. He was a Pacific Green for a long time. There was some, as there has been in our party, there was some infighting. Chris moved on over to the Progressive Party. He does have the nomination from several other parties, and he's seeking our co-nomination. He has been a former member of the our state coordinating committee. I thought he did a great job when he was on our board, and I think he's certainly a full-on bona fide Green who just is now registered in another party who is very similar to us, the Oregon Progressive Party, and wants our co-nomination. Let's consent and nominate him with your votes, of course.
Well, he's on the ballot. He's on the ballot, right?
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that. What do you mean?
Who's saying?
He is.
He is. Yes. Okay. I just wanted to confirm that. That's what I thought.
Yeah, he has the nomination from the Progressive Party and from the Independent Party currently.
So people have an opportunity to vote for him. I don't want to take the time for a consensus.
No, they can vote on open vote. You're right.
Yes, you've got a yes/no vote on Chris and the other non-contested races. So now I'm going to interject. Alex Polikoff said he had a brief message for other candidates, and then we'll go to the Q&A.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. So I just wanted to first off advocate everybody should have a voter's pamphlet statement, because that shows up in everybody's mailbox, and that's a really good way of getting out your message. So along with that, if you're going to do a voter's pamphlet statement, you can either petition or pay for it to get in there. I usually petition, but with the COVID crisis, I don't know how that's going to go. So a lot of you may wind up paying for it instead of petitioning. So I was always upset because I always ran a bare bones campaign before. And if you pay to get in the voter's pamphlet statement, you're already over the limit of needing a campaign committee and treasurer and all, and filing with Oristar. So FYI, I complained about this to Dan Rayfield, by the way, who was instrumental in our ranked choice voting campaign.
I don't know Spanish on it.
And he actually changed that in statute. So now if you pay for your voter's pamphlet statement, that does not count towards that financial limit to where you go over, where it counts towards having to establish an Oristar account. So FYI for everybody, now if all you do is just pay for a voter's pamphlet statement, you can still, just be your own treasurer and keep under that limit. So I just wanted to let everybody know about that, because that's a recent change, and it's in the campaign finance manual, but I just wanted to emphasize it for everybody.
Okay, thank you, Alex. And Alex de Blasi accidentally got shortchanged a bit, so.
Yeah, my fault, sorry.
Oh, that's all right. We're all doing our best. And we will, so Alex, you got something to add? Alex de Blasi?
Yes, I do. So I've got a few friends who are involved in social media, specifically like some of these leftist channels on YouTube, like the Jimmy Dore Show. The Jimmy Dore Show routinely criticizes Democrats from the left from a progressive standpoint. His co-host, Ron Placone, he and I went to Indiana University together. We're pretty good friends. He intends to have me on his show. He's gotten me in touch with Mike O'Neill at the national level. I'm friends with David Doonan on Facebook, and we've been in communication for years. So I do intend to use this campaign as a chance to promote the party, especially for younger, disenfranchised, especially the Bernie supporters, but just disenfranchised progressives who have seen what happened with the DNC, not just in 2016, but this year with their stupid clown car strategy where everyone betrayed Bernie and voted for Biden. And just to let them know that the Green Party is a way out. And hopefully get 5% of the national vote for the presidential candidates, so that the party is then eligible for funding at a bigger level. So that is perhaps the greatest goal of the campaign, beyond criticizing fake progressive Democrats from the left, to also promote the Green Party, especially in one of the most radical cities in the United States, and certainly a city that's been in the national purview since Trump took office, with all of our protests, with Antifa, and now with Black Lives Matter, and also the history of the environmental movement being in Portland.
Thank you, Alex. Maybe we can get some other of our candidates involved with that. So you might want to get in touch with Alex, especially statewide candidates or congressional. So we have a bit of time now, or we were planned to have a bit of time for questions from the floor. So do we have any questions? There's quite a bit going on in the chat, but I'm not sure. I'm having trouble following it. Do we have questions from the floor?
Yes.
I have a sadly techno-ignorant question. Michael Sunleitner here.
I sympathize.
Well, thank you very much. I'm speaking on my phone and I'm checking on my computer the ballot. And I'm having difficulty figuring out how to vote. That is, on, say, U.S. President, it says instructions, use the buttons to add choices to the ballot. I see no buttons.
Oh, man.
Drag to arrange them in order of preference. And
Mayor, interject. You drag it. You drag the name and put it in the box in the order you want.
In which box?
Michael,
because it's not working. It's not working.
Michael, can I request that we review that during the lunch hour? Because during the lunch hour, we have time to review how to vote and to answer technical questions.
Okay, though, I'm not sure how long I'll be able to stay with the day. And so...
Can you contact Dan Pouliou?
Yeah, I have a similar problem in terms of, let's say, choosing between Ibrahim and Emma.
Yeah.
But I don't see the click to select a choice. I click and I get information about each, but I don't see any selection option.
Michael, I'm gonna request Dan to contact you directly via phone or something like that to reply.
I'm already doing that.
With that, though,
okay.
If others have a similar problem, then it's a system issue. If it's simply me, I apologize.
No problem.
Hey, Michael, can you just click the checkbox, not the name? The name takes you off to their info, but if you click the checkbox, it should click. Did you try that?
I see no checkbox. I see no check.
What browser are you using?
I'm using Firefox.
I'm using that as well, and I get the checkbox.
Well, I'm happy.
Maybe you need to go through to the website.
Michael, will you please, this is Dan, will you please look at your text chat and I'll try to help you so we can continue with the candidate questions.
Okay. The way we're going to do the Q&A is please send your question or who you want to address it to through the chat. Ibrahim is keeping track of the chat and of the stack, and he's going to now list everybody who wants to talk in the convention stack list. Okay, and Charles is going to do the moderating about that.
Okay, so let me make sure I can see all the questions.
I think Mr. Pavel wants to speak, to ask a question.
That's the first question. Okay.
Yeah, you go ahead, Mr. I don't know how to.
Thank you. I'm Pavel Kanilovich from Carvalho. So I have one question for Daniel, one for Alex de Blasi, if I may. So I'll start with Daniel. So you are running against DeFazio. So what specific policies of DeFazio you do not like?
Is Daniel here?
Hold on, he's probably muted. 1 second. Okay.
to this thing here.
Go ahead now.
Well, Fazio is pretty much supporting the party line when it comes to Democrats. I mean, he's just a Democrat. He needs to go. We need to get rid of the Democrat and the Republican Party from running things, you know, or at least we need to hold their feet to the fire. Peter DeFazio has been congressman longer than I've been here, so it doesn't seem like he's done anything. Did I lose somebody?
So you're running on general grounds, not on specifics.
Pretty much, you know, I have stopped paying attention to Peter DeFazio a long time ago. So I don't know what he's saying today. I haven't listened to a word out of his mouth in a long time. But I do know that the Democrats are lost. They're done. They don't belong in this race anymore.
Okay, thank you.
The two-party system has to go.
So my question to Alex de Blasi, Alex, you in your program you have a statement about the nature of U.S.-Russia relationship.
Yeah,
that was a bit confusing. So can you please clarify that, and specifically, can you comment on the conclusion by the CIA and other intelligence agencies that Russia interfered in 2016 election that materially affected Donald Trump being elected president?
Sure. So I'll answer your first question first. I believe when it comes to these competing dominant superpowers, we need cooperation rather than competition, period. It's creating wars that aren't playing out in combat. It's playing out in cyberspace. It's playing out with intelligence agencies. It's not playing out like we're not going to see another global war like we've seen with World Wars I and II. But I think it is for the greater interest of world peace that we maintain positive relationships focused on cooperation rather than competition. That's one of the reasons why I'm an anti-capitalist. But it doesn't matter what country we're talking about, but I do feel that the Democrats in particular have vilified Russia, right or wrong, in particular, especially since Trump took office. Secondly, as far as the CIA criticizing anyone for election meddling, that is a case of the pot calling the kettle black. And I think that's all I wish to say about that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kenneth Kearns and Chuck Paul are on the stack. Kenneth?
There we go. So I just wanted to ask real quickly, if ideally all of the Green Party candidates got elected for the uncontested seats, how would you guys work together and across party lines to actually promote the 3 pillars of sustainability? Thank you.
Who are you directing the question to?
Just real briefly, if we could just go down the list, starting with you and then Alex, all of the candidates for the uncontested seats. Thanks.
Can I go last? Because I was
it's
management and I
after.
cannot remember and I didn't hear.
Just wanted to let you know it's 25 after.
So we've only got 5 minutes, so very briefly.
Yeah.
Could you re-ask the question?
Yeah, just a real quick talking point on how you would actually work with other parties and together to promote the 3 pillars of sustainability. Thank you.
Sure. So this is Alex de Blasi here. I believe in working across party lines. The other thing is if elected, we would be the only Greens in Congress, so we have no choice but to work across party lines. There are Democrats who I fully support, including the ladies in the squad. There are people in the Senate who I support who are Democrats, like Sherrod Brown. I had a really good experience at his office when I was in D.C. doing advocacy work. So I think it's a matter of being able to reach points of compromise where our core values are not shaken, and to hold a firm line that we don't give up on, especially peaceful resolution to diplomatic conflicts and putting the planet above all other concerns, the safety of the planet and its inhabitants.
Thank you, Alex. Anybody else?
Sure, I'll just chip in. I mean, I would just emphasize that, you know, and the other parties realize this, is that green values are people's values. I mean, people want a living wage. You know, people support universal health care. I mean, people support environmental preservation. Oregonians support all these things. So, you know, it's not a stretch to push green values. It's just, you know, they've been partially co-opted by the Democrats because they're they realize the winds are blowing that way. So, yeah, I mean, I think if all of the Greens were elected, obviously I'd work with Tim in the state house to push things that way. But I don't think it would be, you know, that tremendous a push. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of budget considerations because of revenue loss due to the COVID crisis. But like I say, it's green values are not far. It's not a big stretch from where most of the population is.
Natalie Stack.
Anybody else?
Yeah, let me just reply very briefly. Oh, go ahead, Danielle.
Yeah, I just wonder how honest brokers the Democrats would be in terms of, you know, environmental causes. I don't really know that. I mean, maybe there are some that are honest, but I'm not convinced of that, especially when it comes to things like war. I think like I said before, it's the supreme environmental issue right now. And of course, it touches on every other. But, you know, if we have a Democratic Party that wants to talk about environmentalism, but yet turn it into another like bailout for corporations or something, and take away people's access, I don't know. I think we'd have to have some pretty solid ground to work with on the part of Democrats. I'm not sure that we can see in the short term any real progress with Democrats on that.
Alex,
minute left,
if I could interject.
1 minute left.
I wanted to add to that.
Yeah, Alex, we better let Natalie.
Yeah, please
say something.
So, Kenneth, if we're elected, it means that we have a mass movement behind us. So it's not going to be just out of, you know, something isolated. And I tend to really work with people rather than just party. I think that people are movable and really much more, you really work with people. And I'm not afraid if we are elected that we wouldn't be able to change things just because we would have such a movement. And I think that the Democratic Party needs a strong force from the left to keep it on the left, just like the right wing just totally moved the Republican Party to the right. The Democratic Party is a centrist party, and they need a left movement. And I think that the movement part is really important, and that's what I'm interested. I work very strongly on the rights of nature and legal issues related to the rights of nature. So I don't want to take too much time, and you and I can talk aside separately if you want to know more about it. I would love to engage into the campaign because I do work a lot on nature rights.
Alex, we've got 3 more people on the stack.
Just real quick for the damning comments about the Democrats. Go watch Ilhan Omar when she is grilling Elliott Abrams before the Senate, before the House committee. Like, let that be proof positive that there are Democrats who I think we could work lockstep with. Period.
Okay. So we're essentially out of time, but so maybe another, I think 5 minutes out of lunch.
10 minutes.
10? Okay.
So we want to do 10 more minutes before we break?
Yeah. So.
Okay, I'll start the clock right now if that's okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
We have 3 people on the stack. One asked question. So should we allow the stack to?
Better close.
Well, I see Chris is in the stack as a candidate. Should we give some time to Chris?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think so. So Chris, you've got a couple of minutes here.
Okay.
Well, the votes were on these various measures. The votes were on this various measure. That's why I turned in.
Are we ready? Or
yeah, go ahead.
All right. As for winning, basically, I already ran in the independent party primary. I should probably tell you why I'm late. I drive a truck 6 nights a week.
Yes.
And I had trouble getting back. So I also want to shower after. We don't use the same truck. Everybody shares the truck. So I definitely want to wash any COVID off on me. So I took a shower as soon as I got home and came right to the computer. So I ran in the independent party primary, and I won against the Democrat and the Republican already, who are running in the race. I ran back in 2016, and I took 5% of the vote and almost 100,000 votes in that race as the only third-party member in that was running. I've run on the Green Party ticket before. I believe it was 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4 other times. I think once as governor, once I might have run as treasurer on both tickets, and for U.S. Congress twice. So this isn't new territory. The website that I have, I don't know if you can see it, but that website is from 2016. It needs to be updated, but some of the things that are still on there is that I believe in a state bank very strongly, and campaign finance reform. The Republican called me up the day before voting in the independent primary, and he asked me to step down. He said that he was more independent than I, and I disputed it, and I said, no, I believe I have a pretty good chance. And he chuckled a bit, and he said, well, good luck to you. And so moving along, I told him about the state bank, and I said, no, I'll be advocating for that very strongly. And I believe that with the state bank, back then in 2016, we had $90 billion to invest. And both of these guys, the Democrat and the Republican, are investing in Wall Street, and that basically siphons the money out of our community. And we pay them over $1 billion in fees and interest in order to invest our money. Now it's up to $110 billion, and maybe more so, and we're paying out more in fees. Also, cities and counties pay in to Wall Street in order to float bonds on the bond market. What we could do is bring all of that money home, have the cities and counties borrow from the state bank. We could create co-ops in the businesses that are shutting down and whatnot. That basically gives a funnel of money for people who are returning to work to actually create jobs. If businesses are looking to close and lay them off, they can probably come forward and say, hey, we would like to argue that we get a shot. So with that, I also believe in that Natalie and I, if we won, we would be on the state land board, and we would be arguing for basically, I believe the last thing that they did that was horrid, or they've probably done something since, but they sold off the Elliott State Forest. And I think there are ways that we could go in there and completely change things. And also, I'm a war tax resistor, and I believe that the way we need to really confront climate change is to go head on and really call out the military-industrial complex. My grandfather wrote Eisenhower's speeches. So I believe we need to call out the military industrial complex. We need to create a peace tax fund where Oregon votes, we can get it on the ballot. Oregon votes on whether or not we keep that over 50% that goes of the discretionary U.S. budget that goes to war and bring it home. Especially the budget that pays for overseas military bases. I've exceeded 5 minutes now. So with that, I believe in a worker economy. I believe in a peace economy. And I think that we can build these things, and we should be
30 seconds left.
Yeah.
Are you good?
I'm good. Yeah. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
We have about 3 minutes remaining, I think. Natalie, am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
Anybody else wants to direct questions to any of the candidates? Please be specific. Okay, so should we suggest to break for lunch? What we were planning to do for lunch is to allow people to introduce themselves one-on-one. Oh, Chuck, you're on the stack. Go ahead, Chuck.
Okay. So I'm basically being rhetorical, but I want to put out there for the federal people. And my question is kind of back to I'll use the Ilhan Omar remark. But my question is about how hard-hitting should Greens be rhetorically about fighting the national security state? Is our problem the problem holding up progress in society, environmental? Okay, so that's my question. Ilhan Omar got in trouble with saying someone blew up the buildings in 9/11. She was raked over the coals for that. Should candidates be out front challenging what are essentially uncomfortable taboo topics, which is the fact that we have an overarching national security state fused with a plutocracy? How do we confront that problem with our rhetoric? That's my question. Do we confront it at all?
Okay.
1 minute left.
Okay, we've got one candidate wants to reply. Emma, do you want to?
I'd like to as well.
Okay. Very briefly, folks, we kind of want to go take a break.
Sure.
Alex Polikoff is next, and then Alex and Emma, if she still wants to.
Oh, I had a question. I wasn't responding to the last question. I was on the stack for a question for some of the other candidates.
Okay, go ahead.
No, well, I was just wondering for our congressional candidates, have either of you either run for office before or have any campaign experience, either held or run for office?
I was the gubernatorial candidate for the Greens in 2018, but I received a death threat, so I had to drop out.
Folks, I'm sorry. Time. It's 12:40. Really sorry.
Okay, yeah. If we keep extending it, we won't get to eat.
Okay, if you, it's a networking lunch, so we can bring sandwiches or we can bring our food and talk here. What I suggest is Alex de Blasi and Emma can reply to Chuck's question about addressing the security state, and Alex, who do you want to reply about? Who do you want to reply about experience running candidacies?
I was wanting to reply to. Oh, you're talking to Alex P. Sorry.
Yeah, use Alex P or Alex D for. Yeah, I directed that to the congressional candidates about experience. So, and I think I heard Alex respond. So,
Charles, can you please moderate?
Is there? Daniel, did you have a response to that? You might have gone to get something to eat.
Hey, can I say something? Look I asked the question about for the federal people, the people running for federal, do you face off on this national security question or not? That was my question. And I appreciate the other question from Alex Polikoff, but I am curious and I would like to hear from people running for a federal seat. Do you take on this question or do we be silent about it and just take it quietly? I don't know.
We've got, well, three of them.
We already have U.S. Senate segments.
Emma, you were
So
kind of.
are we?
You were.
We cannot hear you.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I missed. I lost my connection like 3 times in the last.
So my question was, we all.
Hang on a minute, Daniel.
To answer questions, or is this only
I can't.
in the current?
Emma, we cannot hear you.
Let's take lunch before it's too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, people need a full
Could I
stomach
reply real
to
quick to Chuck's
proceed.
question about the national security question?
We don't have time, Alex. We're going to have to. We have to start at 1:30 with the presidential candidates.
The Zoom can continue going on. I'll stay managing the Zoom if you leave. Go ahead, Alex.
Okay.
So with regards to the national security question, when I was training in DC with the Sikh Coalition, one of the things we sought to address was the TSA's profiling of Sikh Americans. I could not believe it when I first heard it, but 100% of turban Sikhs undergo additional security at the airport. That to me is one of the issues of the security state, is how we treat people who fall outside of the majority population. I think ending white supremacist policies in our national security will help create a better atmosphere of trust between citizens and law enforcement. And I think it will create a better atmosphere of trust in activist circles. But that's my 2 cents on the national security question.
Thank you, Alex. Emma?
Okay, can you hear me?
That's better. And then,
okay,
then
great.
Daniel, and then I'm going to go get something to eat.
I'll stay on.
Okay, so your question again is, how should we respond to the national security state?
Yes.
As federal candidates?
Approximately, yes.
I mean, I think we need to oppose it as much as we possibly can. I mean, I think that we as Greens, we respect privacy. We understand that when our emails are being read and when our phone calls are being surveilled and when there's instigators and infiltrators at our protests who are claiming that they're with Black Lives Matter, but they're actually with white racist supremacist groups starting fires, that we need to oppose that. We know that COINTELPRO was involved in, we know that COINTELPRO, I'm sorry, do you know who that is? Can somebody, we know that COINTELPRO was involved in, undermining the, I'm sorry, what?
Go ahead, Emma.
Okay, thanks. We know that COINTELPRO was involved in undermining the social protest movements of the 1960s. And we know that the national security infrastructure has been emboldened since 9/11 with the Patriot Act and with, domestic surveillance. I mean, this is the issue of our generation. And yes, we should oppose it. I will oppose it.
Ibrahim, are you still on? Do you want to reply?
Well, there's 2 things about it. It's closely tied to the foreign policy. And the other thing is controlled by the same people who's controlling our country, which is the plutocrats. Some people would call them different names, but this is the ruling class that wants to have control on the economy. And in order to do that, they need to control the people from uprising and something like this. The other thing is how they implement these measures of control. They use events, they use incidents. I think my statement about the Trace Act is the only one in the whole party that talks about it. So I talked about the Trace Act. Nobody talked about it. Even I think Alex de Blasi did, but not anyone else from the congressional candidates, including Emma, about the Trace Act. Anyhow, now it's being used. It was like implemented 6 weeks ago. They used the coronavirus as an event to implement these measures, and they implemented them, and now they are using it in Minnesota. They're talking about it now openly, and this is the scary part. So we need to be wise. We need to be wide open how they implement these things, under what pretext, and how do we address it. And I think I've been following that closely and talking about it, I think, very clearly. And sometimes you need to be silent on things, because when you talk, you want to change things. And when you want to change things, you need to convince people. If you couldn't convince people, then it is wiser sometimes to remain silent until you get opportunity to do that. So this is my position.
Is there someone else in the stack? I'm having a hard time seeing now if someone else is up. Sorry.
I think we need to redefine what national security means, for one thing. Seems to me what it means to the American people is not the way they're using it up on the hill there. It's basically national security has been used to erase every right in the Constitution, pretty much. And yeah, we need to oppose it. Absolutely. Contact tracing, all of that stuff. I really oppose the use of incidents, whether real or manufactured, to accomplish all these agendas. And I think it's fairly clear that there's a lot more going on than just coronavirus, or protests.
Okay. So anybody, so we're now in the lunch period. If anybody wants to stay on and introduce themselves, have like a 30-second, hey, I'm here, this is my name from here, and these are my interests, just please mark it down in the stack, and I'll keep I'll keep the stack, and I'll unmute people as we go along. Anybody who needs to leave or wants to leave for a while to break for lunch, just feel free to do so. Okay. It sounds like I don't see anybody. Let me see. Yeah, I don't see anybody sending messages through the stack, so. Okay, we'll keep an eye on the stack if anybody wants to jump in. We're going to break for lunch, and we'll reconvene promptly at 1:30 for the presidential candidate presentations.
Natalie, are you there?
Yes.
So, I'm going to go get something to eat too.
Yeah.
Do I just leave my computer on, or do I leave the meeting and come back by the?
No, just leave it. Just leave it all on. Just mute yourself and leave it all on. Amy, you can take a break as well. We're preparing lunch. What I'm going to do is maybe here, I'm going to put a little, we are at lunch, back at 12:30 in the page. Okay? And the screen.